Now, if you think the migrant crisis at the southern border is bad now, you ain't seen nothing yet. The Biden administration is set to drop a public health emergency order called Title 42 that'll open up the proverbial floodgates to America. My first guest tonight is Mark Morgan. He spent 30 years in law enforcement. He served 6 U.S. presidents, including as Border Patrol chief under Barack Obama and as acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection for the Trump administration. He's now a visiting fellow at both FAIR and the Heritage Foundation, heading up their conservative oversight project and doing the work that some of our elected officials, well, they won't do, exposing corruption and holding people accountable. Please welcome to the show a true American hero, Mark Morgan. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Governor.
We are hearing that because of the lifting of Title 42, we're going to see 18,000 people a day, 18,000 every day, illegally crossing the border and fanning out all over the country.
That's right. And Governor, you said something, though, that was very important, is there's some talk that by the ending of Title 42 is going to create the tidal wave of illegal immigration. That's just not true. The tidal wave has already begun. They've using terms like surge. We passed surge 14 months ago. We're already in the middle of a catastrophic, unmitigated crisis along our southwest border that we've never seen in our lifetime. But what's going to happen once Title 42 ends, I'm stealing Senator Kennedy's statement, it's going to be like the Hindenburg crashing into the Titanic.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful metaphor to think about it. You know, people say, yeah, but we've always had an issue at the southern border. Put in perspective for us why this is different than anything we've ever seen before. Whether or not the president was a Democrat or Republican, we've never seen something like this.
Yeah, and I think that's important. Again, I served under six administrations, both Republican and Democrat. The difference is, for example, under President Trump, he was listening to the men and women that are on our front lines, that are entrusted with protecting this country, and he listened to them. He gave them the vast set of tools, authorities, and policies they needed to do what? To secure the border. President Trump was committed to his constitutional obligation to protect this country from the threats facing us from outside our borders. And that's exactly what he did, Governor. This administration inherited the most secure border in our lifetime. The difference is this administration, rather than securing our border, they've dismantled our border. And they're doing it with intent.
The morale at the border among the very agents that you were responsible for leading must be abysmal. And I can't imagine, and I remember when the President of the United States castigated people on horseback who were doing their jobs and doing it effectively, and he talked about how they had done evil, criminal things, when in fact they were simply trying to protect even those very people that they were accused of hurting and accused of horsewhipping, which was not true.
Yeah, so Governor, first of all, thank you. Thank you for bringing up the brave men and women that every day, even though all the tools have been taken away from them to protect this nation, every day they're still getting up and they're putting that badge on their chest and they're going to the front lines of our nation's border trying to protect us, even though all the tools have been taken away. And we had our own president, as you said, used his bully pulpit to go out there before the investigation had even began and said he confirmed that they had whipped people, which was a lie. And quote, he said, they will pay, knowing it was not true. Yeah. And right now, where's the investigation? You know, the Border Patrol honor motto is it's about honor and honor first. And what we've been saying is, where's the report? Where's the report that they've had for 8 months that's going to show that, in fact, they're exonerated and they weren't whipping? Until they put that report out there and reinstitute these individuals' reputation, they're without honor.
Mark, we're hearing about people who are coming across the southern border, but then they're being put on airplanes and they're being flown all over the country. So these are not people who are staying in South Texas or in Arizona or California. They're going all over the country.
That's right.
What is it that's happening in communities when a lot of unattached young men, these are not families, husband, wife, 2 or 3 small children. These are 16, 17, 18-year-old men What are they doing when they get to these places around the country?
Yeah, so there's a couple things here, Governor. Another good line. And so let's talk about when those flights are happening. Those flights are happening in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Right? So if they saw a perceived political benefit from it, or they saw this, that most Americans would be on board with this, they'd be doing those flights in the middle of the day, right? They'd have a ticker tape parade and they have the media out there, but they're not, because they know that most Americans are going to say, hey, wait, this doesn't make sense. And the majority of them, as you said, are actually 15 to 17 years of age. Most of the countries are coming to, they're of military or working age, you know? Look, as an FBI special agent, I worked gangs in Southern California. One of the big ones, MS-13, it's the most violent, prolific transnational gangs in this country. Their motto is rape, kill, and control. And they're in every major metropolitan city. Unfortunately, what happens with a lot of these unaccompanied minors, they end up in gangs. And the statistics have showed that again and again and again.
Is there any hope that things that are being done at the state level? I mean, Governor Greg Abbott in Texas, he said he's going to put folks on buses, take them to Washington, D.C., and drop them off on the Capitol steps and say to Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, hey, you wanted them, you got them. Here they are.
After that.
You know, it seems like that there is a desperation on the part of those who are having to spend enormous amounts of taxpayer money for education and health care and housing and all of the things that go with it, not even to mention criminal prosecution and apprehension of people who come for nefarious purposes. Where does this go?
Yeah, so Governor Abbott, I have to say, he has done more than any other governor, but you're not a governor anymore, so I can say that, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So he's done more than any other governor in our country to really secure our borders and fill the gap that's been left by this administration. One of the major operations, Operation Lone Star, that he started back March, the success has been tremendous. But that's exactly right. We need more governors to step up to do what Governor Abbott is doing. Let me give you just one quick stat that we don't talk enough about that Governor Abbott's really having an impact on is gotaways. Those are illegal aliens that break into our country and they evade apprehension. In the first 14 months of this administration, there's been more than 700,000 gotaways.
700,000.
700,000, Governor. That's larger than the entire population of the state of Vermont. And here's the reality that this administration won't tell American people. The fact is, there are some bad people among that 700,000. There are murders, there are rapists, there are aggravated felons, and there are gang members among that 700,000. And they're making their way to every state in this country. Why is this a left or right thing? This should be an American thing to secure our borders and to protect our nation.
And Mark, I got to tell you that the White House press secretary says that that's not really a problem for them to get away because we're giving them cell phones, smartphones, and that way we can track them. I couldn't believe my ears when that was the excuse, that we're providing smartphones. We have elderly people who can't afford one to call 911 if they fall down on their floor, but we're giving smartphones to people who are illegally here under the guise that we're going to track them. How does that make you feel?
Well, I think that's why, Governor, you're seeing the polls on this. People are finally waking up and they're paying attention. I think that's why you see he's beyond upside down on the polls with border security, because the most Americans, they look at that, and you don't have to be a border security expert to say, that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
How can we do that? They call that ATD, Alternatives to Detention. That's a big thing, because someone that breaks into our country, commits a crime, they will not detain them. They don't want to detain them. You don't detain them, there's no consequences. There are no consequences, they're going to keep coming. Again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that. And that's what this cell phone is about. And let's not forget, Secretary Mayorkas, who, by the way, should be impeached, his goal is we're going to help them illegally enter. We're not going to detain them. And then once they've been here for a while, I'm going to prevent ICE from lawfully deporting someone that remains in the country illegally. Well, I mean, we're living in an alternate universe, Governor.
We truly are. I'm so glad that you have served our country. I wish you were still there. I think a lot of us do, but continue to be a very strong, vocal proponent of keeping our laws, because, Mark, we desperately need that. For our audience, I know that you'll want to keep up with Mark Morgan and the work that he has with the Heritage Foundation. We've got links for you at Huckabee.tv, so go to those and find out how you can keep up with what Mark is doing as he continues to serve our country.